and we're going to get to it, but we got to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. There's a very serious Secret Service scandal that is breaking right now that nobody else is going to tell you about. And you know what? It was a very serious Interior Department scandal. It was a very serious Agriculture Department scandal. Maybe I wouldn't be talking about it. But since the United States Secret Service is given the task of protecting the President of the United States, and since we all know that they almost got him killed in July 2024 in Butler, Pennsylvania, call me crazy if somehow or another this is like front and center on my radar screen. We'll get to Iran. We'll do the whole thing. We got updates on it, but I've got to lead with this. The great Susan Crabtree, national correspondent for Real Clear Politics. Buddy, does she have it? And she has been breaking one Secret Service scandal after another since starting at least with Butler. All right, here we go. This is going to be kind of a rough ride. I'm just telling you. Not suitable for children. Secret Service exclusive. OnlyFans creator posts what appears to be a Secret Service agent's ID on social media and alleges that he's living a double life. A woman identified as Brittany Jones over the weekend posted on Facebook and her Brittany Jones XX Instagram account what appears to be a photo of a Secret Service agent's ID with a statement claiming that the agent is her boyfriend who lives a double life, protecting the president by day and making adult content with her by night. Ms. Jones, who appears to be the same woman who accused former Patriots wide receiver Stephon Diggs of having sex with her last year while he was in a relationship with Cardi B, just in the interest of full disclosure, posted what looks like the Secret Service ID of one William W. Foy Jr., along with a lurid caption. She writes on Facebook, "My boyfriend lives a double life, guarding the president by day, then making adult videos with me by night." In a separate video posted to Instagram with the title, "When Your Boyfriend Works for the Secret Service," Jones is, I don't want to say that. Another video shows the woman on the passenger side of the vehicle while the same man is driving. Jones wearing a blonde wig and seductively acting crazy while asking the man how to pronounce his last name. You know how to pronounce Foy? Yet another post from Jones shows the same man coring a pineapple in a kitchen. Jones posts a photo with the caption, "The only guy who could ever tame me, Michael Foy." Again, Secret Service agent. And it just gets more and more salacious. But Rich Staropoli, the name may sound familiar from Fox News. He's a retired Secret Service agent with a 25-year career who also serves as Chief Information Officer for Homeland Security Department. So the posts are indicative of the Secret Service agency's low hiring standards in recent years. Staropoli told Real Clear Politics, "It's another distracting incident the Secret Service has to deal with when they should be out there protecting the president. It speaks to the hiring and the screening of these people, and more importantly, who's taking any corrective action once this stuff comes to light." Staropoli wrote an op-ed for Fox News last week arguing that the Secret Service doesn't have a recruiting problem, it has a hiring problem. The piece described, quote, how woke DEI hiring practices have destroyed the world's most enigmatic and foremost protective agency. Real Clear Politics has run a series of articles on how corrosive Biden-era DEI policies, coupled with a longstanding culture of corruption, favoritism, and nepotism, are still plaguing the Secret Service under Director Sean Curran, and after President Trump was nearly assassinated twice in 2024. Now, here's the sad thing. A lot of your friends and family, if they hear you saying something like President Trump was almost assassinated twice in 2024, they'll probably be like, wait, twice? What do you mean twice? Because most people, even people who don't pay attention, know that he took a bullet in the ear at Butler, Pennsylvania, July 13th, 2024. But I guarantee you, a lot of them have never heard about Ryan Ruth lying in wait in the shrubs at the edge of the golf course in Palm Beach a couple of months later for 12 or 13 hours and being totally missed by what was supposed to be a routine sweep by the Secret Service until somebody noticed a gun barrel poking through the shrubs. They'd be like, Ryan, who? So was he arrested? Well, yeah, they chased him up the highway. Huh. So what happened to him? Oh, he's gone to jail for a long, long time. Really? Didn't know that. So it just goes back to something I've often said. We assume that everybody is kind of up to date on what we're up to date on, and that's not always a good assumption, just so you know. Well, no, I mean, a good friend of mine who lives in another state, really keeps up on politics, but unlike me, has a life, asked me a few days ago, why, for instance, why are the Democrats just now taking Swalwell out? They've had this stuff on him forever. And I'm sitting there going, wait, he doesn't know? And then I'm thinking, well, maybe some people within the sound of my voice don't know. So California doesn't have a Republican primary, a Democrat primary. They got a jungle primary. So whoever gets the most votes, the top two, are in a runoff. And they were concerned there were too many Democrats running. Couldn't take the chance of two Republicans being the top vote getters. Had to be at least one Democrat in the runoff. So they told Swalwell, hey, hit the bricks. And Swalwell's like, I don't think so. Oh, really? You know what we got on you? But plenty of people who keep up on politics didn't know that. Anyway, let me get back to the Secret Service. So the Secret Service has not responded to Susan Crabtree's questions about this scandal. Again, she is the national political correspondent for Real Clear Politics. Certainly nothing to sneeze at. And she adds this to a litany of Secret Service scandals, some of which you may have heard of, but I guarantee you haven't heard of a lot of them. And we will continue with that in just a few. And again, lots of breaking stuff coming up on Iran, but since the Secret Service is supposed to be protecting the president that was almost assassinated twice, I think we need to, put them at the top of the show. So that is all coming up as the Doc Washburn Show continues on Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1, The Answer. 101.1, The Answer. Doc Washburn Show continues. You can sound off and talk back at 501-401-1011. You would expect, with everything that's going on with Iran, that we would kind of be starting with that. We're going to get to it. But this Secret Service thing, man. The grace of God, Trump's still with us. If he didn't turn his head a fraction of an inch when he did, and Butler, instead of taking one on the top of the ear on live TV, he would have taken it right in the temple, and, his head would have exploded, and that was obviously the plan. No, listen to me. So when the House of Representatives put together their committee to investigate Butler, a lot of people were like, okay, wait, Speaker Johnson, what are you doing? We've got trained snipers. We have retired Navy SEALs in the House, and they're not on this committee? What are you doing? So they put together kind of an alternative investigation, and they called 3 guys to testify. One of them was Bongino, and Bongino said, look, just way too many mistakes. And layered incompetence equals intent. Statistically, you don't make that many different mistakes and add it up to what happened. So, forgive me if you don't understand why I'm concerned about Secret Service. Okay, Susan Crabtree, following up here, Real Clear Politics says, think about the Secret Service and its estimated 3,200 special agents as if they were a small liberal arts college. That's the analogy here. She said, if you had this many scandals exposed at a small liberal arts college in 2 years, it would be a black mark for the school as a whole. Applications would drop, funding would dry up. Previously, a college degree was required to be a Secret Service special agent, but with the manpower problems, that's no longer required. The negative impact is already happening. Recruitment bonuses have gone from 45 to 50,000 up to 75,000 because of the extreme talent and manpower drain. The exodus of fed-up senior agents out the door, as well as any effort to speed up the hiring process in many ways by lowering standards and dangling money. Just in the last 2 months, we've had 2 special agents ensnared in sex scandals. The OnlyFans one that we told you at the start of the show, and the James O'Keefe honeypot incident. And here's a list of other scandals plaguing the Secret Service over the last 2 years. She says, chime in if I've missed one. And people chimed in, and she's like, oh, yeah, that one too. We'll get to that. Okay, first of all, new Secret Service agent recruit accused of placing a camera in a cell phone charger to spy on / stalk a roommate. Number 2, Secret Service agent Mayo Perez, who was in charge of Butler security, secretly married a foreign agent, suspected illegal immigrant without informing the agency, kept the secret for 9 months, received a 3rd suspension in a year. Suspension? Why don't you fire somebody like that? Maybe even indict somebody like that. Number 3, no one was fired over President Trump's near killing at Butler, Pennsylvania, and then a month later at Trump's golf course in Florida. No one was fired. 2 Secret Service supervisors who were overseeing Butler received big promotions despite their failures to identify that the sloped AGR roof at Butler had no one manning it. No one was fired. What? Number 4, one of those supervisors gets a new recent promotion to become the Assistant Director of Professional Responsibility in charge of every other Secret Service agent's and officer's discipline. Number 5, FBI raids a Secret Service agent's home in an investigation into an alleged massive tax fraud scheme by the agent, potentially ensnaring dozens of other agents. You see where we're going with this? This is crazy. Number 5, newly minted Secret Service agent charged with killing brother over Christmas break. Bet you didn't hear about that one, didn't you? Number 6, 2 black women, uniformed division officers in a physical catfight caught on audio and video outside former President Obama's D.C. residence. Wait a minute. You got two female uniformed Secret Service agents in a literal knockdown dragout right outside Barack's D.C. residence in the middle of the night. I'll bet you Barack and Michelle are like, now, wait a minute. What was this about? Number 8. Black, overweight male agent falls asleep while in a public posting at the United Nations, leaving his M4 in a folding chair while he goes to the bathroom. Oh, my. I think the only reason Susan Crabtree is including ethnicity here is the DEI deal. You know, I mean, there have been Black Secret Service agents going back for many, many years. But I guess the idea is, well, we got to have a bigger percentage. Oh, okay. Next, Secret Service Uniform Division officers miss a Glock during a screening at Trump's Virginia golf course. Secret Service agent celebrates Charlie Kirk's assassination as karma on Facebook page. Chief Counsel, Secret Service, forced to resign over a road rage incident and impersonating a federal officer. There's no way you've heard all of these. Chief of Staff Tyler McQuiston allows someone into the White House, a former Citigroup colleague of his, for a meeting that the person was not authorized by the White House to attend. The action gets White House passes and badges revoked for numerous top Secret Service officials, an unprecedented move to limit Secret Service officials' access to the White House. That's crazy. Secret Service fails to protect Trump and top cabinet members from aggressive Code Pink protests at a D.C. restaurant. Secret Service allows Melania Trump to climb a stopped escalator at the United Nations. Weeks after Butler, a female Secret Service agent, was breastfeeding her baby 5 minutes before Trump was supposed to arrive and potentially use the holding spot where she was breastfeeding. And then she says, have I missed any? And people are like, yeah, a couple. Also, J.D. Vance's house in Ohio was broken into, and James O'Keefe showed the guy on his detail sending out pictures with location metadata the same week that happened from J.D. Vance's house. BusinessInsider.com had the article, Secret Service busted into a salon to let people use the bathroom during a Kamala Harris fundraiser. That's back in August of 2024. Within the past year, there have been 3 agents on the Biden detail who got negative media attention. And she names the names. Also, the most recent incident prior to this, male agent on Biden detail shoots himself in the rear end while reholstering after leaving his gun behind while protecting, supposedly, Jill Biden at the airport in Philadelphia. Female agent shoots herself in the hip while reholstering during weapons requalification. And just prior to Butler, a female agent assigned to Kamala Harris had a mental breakdown, a mental meltdown at J.B. Andrews Air Force Base, and had to be wrestled to the ground and carried away. I mean, you know, I don't want to go too far on a limb here. You know me. I hate to rattle cages. And I hate to jump to conclusions. So forgive me if I'm being a little bit too, I don't know what the word is, but, you know, it's almost like the United States Secret Service isn't sending their best. Well, I mean, you hate to laugh because, again, as I said at the start of the show, if there was some kind of breaking scandal that the Interior Department, the Agriculture Department, the EPA, I mean, those are all important parts of the government, but maybe I wouldn't have this on the front burner because, we get this little unpleasantness going on over in Iran. But I mean, goodness gracious, it's just unbelievable to me. All right. So the latest out of Iran, and we'll get to it after the bottom of the hour news, spokesperson for the Iranian government may have said something today that would make Trump and our military's jobs a lot easier. I'm Doc Washburn, more coming up. Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1 The Answer. 101.1 The Answer. Doc Washburn Show continues, where you can sound off and talk back at 501-401-1011. So let's get to some of this Iran stuff, because I need to kind of catch you up with what seems to be going on. And so we'll play some audio clips, and then I have some very interesting analysis I've come across. I'll tell you what, let's start with Trey Yingst on Trump and Iran. Cut one, please.
Yeah, guys, good morning. I just spoke with President Trump for about 20 minutes, and he told me if Iran does not sign this deal, the whole country is getting blown up. He went on to say that bridges and power plants will be targeted if Iran does not sign this agreement. The president telling me that U.S. Special Envoys Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff are heading to Islamabad, Pakistan for meetings on Tuesday, possibly into Wednesday, to try and get this agreement across the finish line. The president telling Fox News this is a very simple deal, but this is the last chance for the Iranians. The president very clear in our conversation that he is not making the same mistake that President Obama made, giving cash to the Iranians and allowing them to continue a nuclear program.
Okay, so that was the first cut from yesterday morning when Trey Yingst was talking to the folks on Fox and Friends. Let's go with Trey Yingst on Trump and Iran. Cut two, please.
The deal on the table is to reopen the Strait of Hormuz to ensure that the Iranians do not have this highly enriched uranium that is buried deep underground after Operation Midnight Hammer last summer. And again, the president telling Fox News that the entire country will be blown up. Bridges and power plants will be targeted if the Iranians do not sign this agreement. This is a significant development because we are in this less than 72-hour window before the ceasefire between the United States and Iran expires. And the president has given the Iranians an opportunity for an off-ramp, an olive branch. He is extending to the Iranian regime to avoid this region going back into war.
Yeah, but see, we talked about this before, and the crazy thing about it is natural for us to want to negotiate. It's natural for us to go, well, golly, if we just go full bore in this, a lot more people are going to die. And you hate to see that happen. However, the problem with religiously motivated lunatics in charge of something like the Iran regime is they can't conceive of that mindset. To them, the willingness of their opponent to negotiate means one thing and one thing only, and that is weakness. So when they opened, for instance, the talks with Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, and J.D. Vance, they're like, oh, no. No, we're not going to get rid of this. We're not going to do that. No. You know, they wanted, because in their minds, we must have the upper hand if these people are willing to negotiate. So, no, we're not going to settle for anything. And, you know, Vance is no dummy. Witkoff is no dummy. Kushner is no dummy. At some point, they must have gotten the impression that, okay, these people are crazy. And at some point, anyway, the other day, Maria Bartiromo from Fox interviewing President Trump said, you sound kind of hoarse. You getting laryngitis? He's like, well, I've been screaming at Iranians all day. You like to be nice, but they don't understand nice. All you do is scream at them. And I said at the time, I wouldn't be surprised if he told the staff, hey, look, here's a list of cuss words, and I want you to translate it into Farsi, the language they speak, because I want to really talk real bad about their mothers while I'm screaming at them. Because I take you back to when Obama was negotiating the Iran nuke deal. Obviously, he wasn't going over there negotiating. He said, John Kerry reporting for duty. And his crew And it was publicly reported, I can't remember if it was New York Times, Wall Street Journal, somebody, that sometimes the Iranian negotiators would get frustrated and they'd scream at them. Well, the first time they raised their voice at Witkoff and Kushner, Witkoff is like, well, we could leave. I mean, whatever. Anyway, but I digress. Did we do all three of those Trey Yingst cuts already? No, we haven't. I'm sorry. Okay, Trey Yingst on Trump and Iran from Fox and Friends yesterday, cut 3.
The president said the United States military is prepared. He said the U.S. has massive amounts of ammunition, even better munitions than they had in the opening days of Operation Epic Fury, to use against the Iranian regime, to target a variety of different positions across their country if they are not willing to make this good faith deal. And again, he tells Fox News that his special envoys are headed to the Middle East, and they are going to try and get this deal across the finish line. But this is in the hands of the Iranians, if they are willing to make a good faith agreement. And if they are not, the president has indicated there will be significant strikes against the Iranian regime in response if this diplomatic effort does not succeed.
Okay, now we will have some updates from Trey Yingst, but I feel like I need to share some stuff with you, some incredible insight from the Institute for the Study of War. It's a policy research organization focused on U.S. national security. Their account over at X has 1 million followers, and I've been reading their stuff over the weekend. I'm like, okay, these guys are actually making a lot of sense. So let me tell you what they have been saying. First of all, from Saturday, the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, is responsible for coordinating and conducting military actions, but has historically not directly interfered in Iranian diplomacy and negotiations to the extent that it currently does. The IRGC's consolidation of control over Iranian decision-making indicates that the Iranian political officials currently negotiating with the United States do not have the authority to independently determine Iran's negotiating positions. So, oh man, I hate this. Don't you hate when they use an abbreviation and you're like, how am I supposed to read your mind? I don't know what that stands for. So the cool thing is, copy and paste really quickly, and you find out what it means. So, CTP ISW, that is the Critical Threat Project from the Institute for Study of War. Okay, so they're saying that the Critical Threat Project of the Institute for Study of War recently assessed that the United States is negotiating with a divided committee of hardliners and pragmatists that lacks a cohesive, unified position. All right, now, let me just say something, because I've never been in the position any of these people are in. But it's just really hard for me to wrap my mind around the idea that there are any moderates anywhere near power in Iran. I just want to go on record with that. Anyway, they continue. The IRGC appears to have sidelined more pragmatic figures with whom the United States has negotiated. Araghchi and Galibaf's negotiating team reportedly did not have full authority to finalize a deal with the United States in Islamabad, when Vance and Kushner and Witkoff were over there. All right, next. The IRGC, and again, this is from over the weekend from the Institute for the Study of War. This is from yesterday morning. The IRGC Navy attacked several commercial vessels and halted traffic in the Strait of Hormuz on Saturday, likely in order to both gain leverage over the United States and consolidate the IRGC's control over Iran's negotiations policy as part of an internally motivated maneuver. The IRGC appears to have intervened and reasserted Iranian control over the Strait of Hormuz after Araghchi. Now, he's the president, right? Hang on a sec. Again, it's difficult. I try to keep up with this stuff best I can. Just copy and paste that name over here. I believe he's what's left of a president, and probably not. Okay, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Iran. I was close. Anyway, so the Iranian, pardon me, where was I? Okay. I was in the wrong place. Yes. So the IRGC appears to have intervened and reasserted Iranian control over the Strait of Hormuz after their Minister of Foreign Affairs, Araghchi, announced on Friday that the strait was open to commercial shipping. At least 9 vessels exited the strait through Omani territorial waters and outside of Iran's imposed traffic separation scheme on Friday and early on Saturday, following the announcement there from Araghchi, the Minister of Foreign Affairs. However, the IRGC harshly criticized Araghchi's statement publicly and outlined specific conditions for vessels to transit the strait that amount to Iran retaining control over maritime traffic through the strait. The IRGC Navy, wait, I thought their Navy was gone. Oh, okay, they still got a spokesman on land? Okay, thank you. The IRGC Navy later announced that no vessel of any kind should approach the strait or it'll be targeted. Well, I guess they got those little speedboats. Okay. The IRGC likely aims to secure leverage over the U.S. by halting traffic and driving up shipping and oil prices to impose economic pressure on the U.S. If I may digress for just a moment. How y'all think that's going to work out? Sometimes we have to channel our inner Dr. Phil. The IRGC's actions are also likely intended as an internal demonstration of power designed to exhibit the IRGC's control within the regime, particularly over Iran's negotiation policy. Their Navy, such as it is, likely use fast attack craft. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, the little speedboats, to attack and intimidate at least 4 vessels in order to deter vessels from transiting the strait. On Saturday, all the attacked vehicles appear to have been transiting along the Iran-imposed traffic separation route that forces ships through Iranian territorial waters at the time of the attacks. IRGC Navy gunboats, because they don't have any big ships left, I guarantee you that, fired on a likely Indian-flagged tanker east of Larak Island, and unknown projectiles struck a likely Iranian-flagged container ship in the same area. Reuters also reported that 2 vessels reported being struck by gunfire. All 4 vessels turned around. The IRGC also broadcast radio messages to vessels in the strait, warning them that the strait is closed. Numerous vessels traveling toward the strait turned around after the Iranian attacks, according to maritime tracking data. The U.S. Navy's blockade of Iranian ports. See, a lot of people don't understand this. They think that Trump, quote, closed the Strait of Hormuz, unquote. That's not what he did. All he did was blocked the Iranian ports to anybody coming in and out. Other than that, he's fine with, regular maritime traffic going through the Strait of Hormuz. Anyway, the U.S. Navy's blockade of Iranian ports remained in place as of Saturday. U.S. CENTCOM said that it forced 2 ships to turn around and return to Iran between Friday and Saturday. Oh, we're going to have an update about what they did more recently. The U.S. Navy has forced 23 ships to turn back since the U.S. began the blockade. Commercially available maritime tracking data shows that Iranian-flagged tankers and cargo ships continue to transit inside the straits on Saturday after the IRGC attacks, but no Iranian vessels have attempted to approach or test the blockade line as of Saturday evening. Now, one of the things that I think should make Trump and the military's job a little easier is if there's so much confusion and dissension within the ruling elite at Iran that they're not going to send anybody to the negotiations. Okay, we'll just blow you up then. More came up straight ahead as the Doc Washer Show continues. 101.1 The Answer. 101.1 The Answer. Doc Washer Show continues. Sound of a talk back 501-401-1011. It's fascinating to me just kind of stumbling across some pretty interesting insight, some pretty interesting commentary by people who study this stuff for a living. We're looking at what the Institute for the Study of War, which is just knocking it out of the park, is talking about. Their policy research organization focusing on U.S. national security. They got 1 million followers over there on X. And so here's what they posted yesterday. The Iranian public officials who will reportedly negotiate with the U.S. in Islamabad, Pakistan on Tuesday neither have the authority to independently determine Iran's negotiating positions nor are driving decision-making in Tehran. Other key takeaways. U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner will attend the talks. Iran's negotiating delegation is expected to include Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf. The upcoming talks appear focused on extending the ceasefire, which is set to expire on April 22nd. Well, Trump's out there saying, no, we're not going to extend the ceasefire. No, if they want their bridges and power plants taken out, we'll do it. But I digress. Iranian sources familiar with the negotiations stated that Iran expects that the ceasefire will be extended and that additional talks will occur if the negotiations on April 21st go well. Yeah. Can I use a 4-word phrase here? They don't get it. For real. The Iranian negotiating team does not have the authority to independently determine Iran's negotiating positions, however. Well, it's too bad for them. IRGC Commander Major General Ahmad Vahidi and other senior members of the IRGC have consolidated control and wielded significant influence over the negotiations process thus far. Apparently, these guys, despite all evidence to the contrary, apparently these guys still are under the mistaken assumption that Allah is actually Akbar. And they seem to be wanting to really test the theory about the 72 virgins. And they'll be sadly mistaken soon, I believe. Anyway, I digress again. Back to the study of war. The Institute for the Study of War. Iran is attempting to establish a protection racket in the Strait of Hormuz, likely to consolidate the IRGC's control over the strait and gain leverage over the U.S. in negotiations. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Iran has reportedly decided to give vessels that pay a security fee and adhere to Iranian protocols priority to transit through the strait. The IRGC has continued to prevent traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. Their navy, such as it is, reportedly forced 2 oil tankers attempting to transit through the strait to change course. Many vessels that intended to transit through the strait have turned around. All right. Now, all that having been said, President Trump, yesterday afternoon, on his Truth Social said, today an Iranian-flagged cargo ship named Touska, nearly 900 feet long and weighing almost as much as an aircraft carrier, tried to get past our naval blockade, and it did not go well for them. The U.S. Navy guided missile destroyer USS Spruance intercepted the Touska in the Gulf of Oman and gave them fair warning to stop. The Iranian crew refused to listen, so our Navy ship stopped them right in their tracks by blowing a hole in the engine room. Right now, U.S. Marines have custody of the vessel. The Touska is under U.S. Treasury sanctions because of their prior history of illegal activity. We have full custody of the ship and are seeing what's on board, President Donald J. Trump. Now, I don't know if you're aware, but yesterday on his Truth Social, No, I guess it was late Saturday evening on his Truth Social. President Trump retweeted or retruthed, or however you say it, a video of Frank Sinatra singing, "I did it my way." And people are like, okay, well, what does this mean? Should we get into the bunker? What in the world? I kind of like the way that he tweaks the liberals in the mainstream media, but I repeat myself. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, the lyrics, and now the end is near, and so I faced the final curtain. I did it my way. Oh boy. I wonder if anybody in Iran is even paying attention to that, but I just thought that was pretty neat. Well, no, look, I call balls and strikes. If I disagree with him on something like the nomination for the new CDC director, I'll say so. But if I think he's just killing it, knocking the cover off the ball, I'll say so on that too. Because that, ladies and gentlemen, is just how I roll. I got to tell you more about that ship of Iran that we took over and what the deal is with that coming up after the top of the hour news. The Doc Washer Show continues. Little Rock's Premier Talk Station, 101.1, The Answer. 101.1 The Answer. Doc Washer Show continues. You can sound off and talk back. 501-401-1011. Okay, we got some breaking news for you about a couple of things. We'll get back to Iran in a second. If you're just tuning in, it's could be the beginning of the end over there. And we're trying to give you as many details as we can so you can arrive at your own conclusions. But, you know, I would not be surprised if we're going to do what President Trump has warned. No, not going to extend the ceasefire. I'll tell you what, instead, we'll take out your power plants and bridges. Anyway, we'll try to get back to that in a minute. U.S. Representative James Comer on TV a little bit earlier over on Fox. Now, he is the committee chairman for the House Oversight Committee. He's talking about an issue that we've covered before on the Doc Washburn Show, the 11 dead or missing top secret U.S. scientists. That whole situation is now being viewed as a national security threat, and investigations are surging. Here's what Chairman James Comer said. It does appear that there's a high possibility that something sinister is taking place here. This has been going on, obviously, for the last 3 years. So what I found in 3.5 years as chairman of the House Oversight Committee is sometimes government agencies don't do a good job of sharing information on situations like this. Oh, my goodness. That about took my breath away. I think we're going to have to nominate James Comer for Nobel Prize for understatement. I mean, let me just run that by you again. In his best Captain Obvious impersonation. So what I found in 3.5 years as chairman of the House Oversight Committee is sometimes government agencies don't do a good job of sharing information in situations like this. You know, I just, truer words than ever spoken. I can't find any fault with that statement whatsoever. I am completely on the same page. And I don't care if it's notebook, paper, or whatever. I'm completely on the same page with James Comer. Yeah, sometimes they don't do that. He says, so we've asked all those agencies, the Department of Energy, NASA, the Department of War, to all share information with us so that we can see if we can put it together and find any missing links to try to solve what's going on here, because it's very unlikely that this is a coincidence. So Congress is very concerned about this. Our committee is making this one of our priorities now because we view this as a national security threat. Okay, can I just say something here? We've talked on and off about the fact that since Donald J. Trump retook office January 20th of last year, some things in the federal government have gotten much better, like Department of War, for instance, much better. Like you got a really good Secretary of State. Some things have gotten much better. And then I think the evidence is out there that unfortunately, when it comes to an organization like the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Kash Patel has not fired nearly enough people. And unfortunately, still tends to trust the people that he hasn't fired yet. And so, I mean, the FBI should be all over this. Okay, that's one. Then we also have this. This looks like C-SPAN instead of Fox. Trump Interior Secretary Doug Burgum just revealed that he has found NGOs, non-governmental organizations, where up to 100% of their revenue was from the federal government. And these are NGOs in which the CEO would make sometimes $650,000 a year, pay lobbyists $400,000 a year. And here's what he said in a congressional testimony a little bit earlier today. We found organizations that were receiving grants from the Interior Department, where 80 to 100% of the revenue of that NGO was a grant from the federal government. And yet those organizations, we were the sole source of the revenue, but they would have a CEO making $650,000 annually and 4 lobbyists each making $400,000 annually. And of course, Democrats are not too happy about that testimony because that's the kind of thing that, they'd rather not go public. And of course, the problem is that most Americans will never hear about it. But that's a whole nother issue. CBS News reporting their sources are telling them that cooperating witnesses in a criminal probe of former CIA Director John Brennan have been subpoenaed to testify before grand jury. Now, if you're listening to talk radio for the first time or listening to the Doc Washburn Show for the first time, there is a federal grand jury that was impaneled in the middle of January in Fort Pierce, Florida, that is supposed to be looking into the possibility of an overarching conspiracy, which would include Russiagate, which would include the Mueller probe, which would include the fake Ukrainian impeachment of Trump, all kinds of stuff. And John Solomon, justthenews.com, reported last year, Brennan subpoenaed, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, FBI subpoenaed, a lot of stuff. So yeah, that's going on. And I just, like I say, we try to walk and chew gum at the same time. I just feel like I should be kind of explaining in the 2 hours that we have what's going on and remind you every once in a while, why is nobody else telling you this? Okay, now, Trey Yingst is kind of like the go-to guy when it comes to reporting on what's going on in the Middle East over at Fox News. And say what you will about Fox News. I certainly have criticized them on a number of different issues. But the problem is when we're talking about breaking news, Newsmax doesn't have the staff to cover breaking news in the middle of the night. It's not there. And so this is where people go. I have criticized Sean Hannity on and off for years about all kinds of different things. He doesn't listen to his guests. He doesn't listen to the callers on the radio. But I tell you one thing, January of last year, when that helicopter hit that jet in the skies over D.C., the news broke while Sean Hannity was on the air. And I told my wife, you know how often I criticize this guy. He drives me crazy. She's like, yeah. I said, well, he's letter perfect tonight. I didn't know he still had it. I had no idea he had it in him. Boom, 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 boom. Until the end of the hour when he handed it off to, well, it wasn't Gutfeld that night, that's for sure. But so anyway, I talk too much. No, you're right. Young Val is filling in for young Tommy, producing today. And you're right. We'll do the Trey Yingst updates after the break. A lot going on today. The Doc Washburn Show continues on Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1, The Answer. 101.1 The Answer. Doc Washburn Show continues. Sound off and talk back. 501-401-1011. This Iran thing, if I may use the term present company, I think it's finna go down here in the next 48 hours, maybe even sooner. So Trey Yingst, the Middle East guy for Fox News, the main reporter over there, had some updates from a little bit earlier this afternoon. We got some audio. Trey Yingst, update cut 1, please.
The president said good afternoon amid questions about if an Iranian delegation will arrive in Pakistan this week for direct talks with the United States. We're getting a new statement from Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian, who said on X, honoring commitments is the basis of meaningful dialogue. Deep historical mistrust in Iran toward U.S. Gov conduct remains, while unconstructive and contradictory signals from American officials carry a bitter message. They seek Iran's surrender. Iranians do not submit to force. I spoke with President Trump over the weekend, who told me if the deal isn't done, the deal that we made, then I'm going to take out their bridges and their power plants. He went on to say, if they don't sign this thing, the whole country is going to get blown up.
Yeah, but the Iranians say that we're not being honest. Buddy, come on, man. For real. I've said this before and I'll say it again. When you're interacting with these people, and they post some kind of, fake AI video about Muslims being tortured. And you notice that one of the women has her head on backwards, and some of the kids have 6 fingers on their hands. And you're like, do you guys have any idea how ridiculous you look? And the honest answer is, no. What are you talking about? Well, you don't realize this doesn't make sense? Makes sense? What does that mean? I've got a theory about this whole thing. When you are taught a maniacal hatred from the cradle, but you're not taught logic, linear reasoning, or objective reality, then and I don't mind saying this, Joe Rogan said it first a few years ago. Muhammad encouraged intermarriage of first cousins. And that's been going on for 13 centuries. And that tends to not only give you a lot more birth defects and infant mortality, but the folks who do survive, the IQ keeps getting lower. So if they don't get logic, they don't get linear reasoning, they don't get objective reality, good luck trying to explain cause and effect. They're really just like, I know you're speaking a language, but I don't understand it. So these idiots out there, it's like Baghdad Bob back in the day. Oh, the Americans, we're taking them out as they're rolling into Baghdad. But I digress. All right, Trey Yingst, update cut 2, please. Maybe it's buffering.
Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson held a press conference this morning indicating that Iran has not agreed to attend the talks in Islamabad yet and is currently reviewing U.S. proposals.
We witnessed that the United States insisted on bad faith and violation of the ceasefire. All of this is evidence that the United States apparently does not show seriousness in the diplomatic process.
Bad faith, huh? See, 'cause I thought it was bad faith when you would slaughter thousands of your own citizens in the streets for complaining about high prices, shortage of groceries, the heavy hand of the dictatorship. I thought that was bad faith. I thought it was bad faith when you would go into hospitals and rape nurses who were trying to save people's lives who you'd shot in the street. I thought it was bad faith for the first Ayatollah, Khomeini, the guy that Jimmy Carter helped get in there. To say, now, if you're going to execute a virgin, you got to make sure and rape her first so she doesn't go to heaven. See, I thought all that was bad faith. I thought it was bad faith that a number of leading figures in the regime have adult children living here in the U.S., some of whom in California are dressed like the Kardashians. To me, I kind of thought maybe all of that was bad faith. So being accused of bad faith negotiations by these reprobates, you know, see, the problem when you're in a situation like this, even if you're a Christian and you don't cuss, man, you really want to. You just really want to. And so you have to look for different ways. When I was in college, I learned a word called mendacity. A buddy of mine had a class with a teacher that if you turned in a paper and he recognized something that was kind of like BS, you know, which you can't say what it stands for, he had this stamp that he would stamp the paper with the word mendacity. And my buddy was explaining to me, well, that's a polite way of saying BS without actually cussing. I'm like, buddy, I got to remember that. So you can say mendacity and you're not cussing. And it, yeah, I mean, people might have to look it up, but that's what it means. Like, wow. So anyway, these Iranian guys, they're doing a lot of mendacity. Okay. Producer Val is like, are you ever going to stop filibustering? Do we get to play any more audio today? All right. Trey Yingst, update, cut 3, please.
The remarks come as international focus remains on the Strait of Hormuz. Overnight, Central Command said U.S. forces seized an Iranian-flagged cargo ship that tried to breach the naval blockade. President Trump announced the seizure on Truth Social, saying in part, quote, the Iranian crew refused to listen, so our Navy ship stopped them right in their tracks by blowing a hole in the engine room. Right now, U.S. Marines have custody of the vessel. We understand the ship remains in U.S. custody at this hour. At least 24 other vessels were turned around over the weekend, complying with U.S. orders. The incident came 24 hours after Iran's IRGC fired on 2 vessels trying to pass through the Strait of Hormuz in violation of the ceasefire.
Yeah, those guys just don't get it. And a lot of us, I think, have been really frustrated and impatient with the nature of the negotiations. But if you look at it this way, if sometime in the next couple of days, Trump says, okay, take out their power plants, take out other bridges, these guys aren't serious, at least looking back, he can say, well, look, I did all I could do. And what else was I supposed to do? So anyway, that having been said, we got more audio out there. Yeah, that would be good. Let's Rebecca Heinrichs from the Hudson Institute was on Fox talking about Trump and Iran. If we got that one.
Yeah, so there's multiple things that the Trump administration is trying right now. So the president's using multiple levers of power. That's why you saw Secretary Wright talking about energy. So we're choking out about $435 million a day from this blockade. So you squeeze out the rump regime's ability to have any money, resources at all, and you keep this blockade in place. We also haven't moved a single troop out of the region. We've actually surged some more Marines. The 82nd Airborne is still there, and I think at this point, Bill, what we're trying to do is get the regime that does have power to capitulate and make some kind of deal. The other thing Ambassador Waltz made the point over the weekend is that the United States is still determined to remove that enriched uranium from Iran, and that means you do have to have international, watchers to go in there from the UN, and we're still committed to that. And that means we still have to compel a cooperative rump regime. Mm-hmm. So I think we're still some time away from that.
Yeah, it could be, but I mean, her analysis is pretty good. Let me see. Do we have time for Gordon Chang? Let's do Gordon Chang real quick. Gatestone Institute with Maria Bartiromo.
Getting interesting here with this shipping vessel, which has been going back and forth between Iran and China, and the U.S. boarded it last week. Your reaction to all of these new flare-ups over the weekend, Gordon?
This was an important move, Maria, for the United States to seize that ship, because obviously it was headed for an Iranian port. That's a clear violation of the blockade as announced by President Trump. It's an act of will that tells the world that the United States is as good as its word. And I'm sure that they heard that in Beijing. A lot of people say, oh, the Chinese are playing this long game on the Iran war. Well, no, Xi Jinping is a very short-term ruler acting irrationally most of the time. And we have a sense that essentially Xi Jinping doesn't have any cards to play. He cannot stop the United States. So this is very interesting. I think the war is working out well because President Trump has decided that he's going to win it.
Exactly. Coming up out of the bottom of the hour news, we do have a breaking local story which involves the United States Supreme Court. This just broke a few minutes ago, so we'll get to that. Doc Washer Show continues. 101.1, The Answer. 101.1, The Answer. Doc Washburn Show continues, where you can sound off and talk back. 501-401-1011. Breaking news over the dim gas. Arkansas Democrat Gazette from about a half hour ago. Brett Barrocare, and I hope I'm pronouncing his last name correctly because he's the reporter. U.S. Supreme Court turns down appeal from family of Arkansas teen killed by police officer. This is a sad story. It is breaking news, so I gotta at least share it with you. The U.S. Supreme Court on Monday, that's today, turned away an appeal seeking to reinstate a $32 million verdict by the family of a Central Arkansas teen who was shot and killed by a police officer a decade ago. I remember the story well. I've been here almost 12 years now. The High Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, without explanation, declined to hear the case brought by Piper Partridge and her ex-husband, the teen's father, Dominic Schweikel, over the shooting death of their son, 17-year-old Keegan Schweikel, October 2016. A jury, February 2024, awarded the parents $32 million in damages for the death of their son, finding the city of Benton and then Police Chief Kirk Lane had failed to properly train the department's officers and to properly investigate the shooting. Kirk Lane, if that name is familiar to you, there's a reason for that. And it's not just because former Governor Hutchinson made him statewide drug czar. No, I'm not going to get into too much detail, but if you Google Kirk Lane filed suit and you throw in another name, Jay Campbell, and you're from here, it'll all come back to you. Anyway, but I digress. So 17-year-old Keegan Schweikel entered woods with a gun and threatened to shoot himself. Officer Kyle Ellison, along with several other officers, responding to the scene, ordered him to drop the weapon, which was pointed at his head. Not anybody else. He was threatening to shoot himself. Officer Kyle Ellison reportedly shot and killed Schweikel as the teen began moving the gun away from his head. Buddy. Jurors awarded damages in the amount of $30 million from the city of Benton and $2 million from then Benton Police Chief Kirk Lane. U.S. District Judge Brian Miller dismissed the jury's findings for a third time in 2024, finding that Ellison may have shot Schweikel but did not violate his rights because the teen pointed a weapon at the officer. Okay, now I don't remember that part. And it makes me wonder, because I don't know. I mean, Little Rock police have body cams. I wonder if Benton police have body cams. And I wonder if Benton police had body cams 9.5 years ago in October 2016. Because otherwise, are you just going to take their word for it? I'm just asking questions. Isn't that a familiar refrain these days? I'm just asking questions. I don't know, man. So the U.S. 8th Circuit Court of Appeals upheld Judge Miller's finding in October 2025, prompting the request to the United States Supreme Court. In a petition to the court, Ms. Partridge and her ex-husband, Mr. Schweikel, asked the court to either allow the jury's verdict to stand, order a new trial, or direct a judgment in favor of the family. Mark Garagos, there's a familiar name, Los Angeles-based attorney for the family. You know, I interviewed him when he got the gig way back in the day on the other station. And I was kind of starstruck because this guy, he represented so many people. Michael Jackson, all kinds of really big name, well-known people in LA. And I never could quite figure out how he found out about these people in Benton, Arkansas. But anyway, Mark Garagos, a Los Angeles-based attorney for the family, did not immediately return a message seeking comment today. Efforts to reach Keegan Schweichel's family were also unsuccessful today. But, you know, when you're, no, I don't envy even the reporter for the Democrat Gazette. You can't get a hold of the attorney. You can't get a hold of the family. And yet this news comes down the pike and you got to report on it to the extent, you know, whatever content's available. Anyway, Attorney Garagos argued to the Supreme Court that the city of Benton and the Benton Police Department were both liable for the teen's death because they failed to train officers to deal with people having mental health issues and to investigate other excessive force accusations against Officer Ellison. Oh boy, that part sounds familiar. I think I remember the Democrat Gazette's reporting coming up with that back in the day. I had forgotten about it. It's been 9.5 years. Let me run that part by you again. Attorney Mark Garagos for the family of Keegan Schweichel, 17-year-old, shot and killed by a Benton police officer in the woods. Mark Garagos argued to the U.S. Supreme Court that the city of Benton and the Benton Police Department were both liable for the teen's death because they failed to train officers to deal with people having mental health issues. That's issue number one. And issue number two, they failed to investigate other excessive force accusations against Officer Ellison. Really? You're going to tell me that there would be a law enforcement entity in Saline County that would overlook a situation they should have investigated? I wonder how far back that goes. Well, let's see. Who was the sheriff in 1987? Oh, yeah, that was James Steed. His daddy was sheriff back in the 50s. How deep you want to go with this? Anyway, I'm trying to stick with decorum here, but it's tough. You talk about law enforcement in Saline County, it's tough. This article is taxing me. In his petition, Attorney Mark Garagos wrote, and I quote, petitioners presented evidence that Benton officers regularly encountered individuals experiencing mental health crises, yet the department provided no meaningful mental health training for those recurring encounters, unquote. Really? You mean then Benton Police Chief Kirk Lane was aware that his officers regularly encountered individuals experiencing mental health crises, but didn't see the need to give them any kind of meaningful mental health training for those recurring encounters? My goodness. Well, because you would think that a guy like Governor Asa Hutchinson would have thoroughly vetted Benton Police Chief Kirk Lane before he appointed statewide drug czar. Well, I guess you'd be wrong. The city of Benton and Officer Ellison declined to respond to the family's petition to the Supreme Court. Oh, whoa, wait a minute, wait. So the Supreme Court has turned down the family's petition without a word, even though they only got one side of the story? Because the city of Benton and Officer Ellison didn't even respond? Okay. The family sued in 2017, saying that Officer Ellison used excessive force and, quote, unnecessarily shot and killed, unquote, the teen. Ms. Partridge, Piper Partridge, Keegan Schweichel's mother, had been called the morning of October 17th, 2016 by staff at Harmony Grove High School, who informed her that Schweichel was suspended for having prescription cough medicine. Come on, man. Prescription cough medicine, that'll get you the suspension. Come on, man. I'm surprised they didn't sue the high school. Good grief. Schweichel was picked up later that day at the school by his mother, taken home, where he exited the vehicle, retrieved a handgun from inside her home, according to the filing. He reportedly told his mother as he left the house and walked toward a wooded area about a block away, "I'm going for a walk." Miss Partridge followed Schweichel and pleaded with him to hand over the weapon as he brandished it, according to the lawsuit. That prompted the mother to call authorities. Police said when they arrived, Schweichel refused to drop a handgun after several commands and was shot. Saline County prosecutors declined to prosecute Ellison. Well, of course they declined to prosecute, calling the shooting an act of self-defense. Well, I wonder if they have any proof that Keegan Schweichel pointed the gun at Officer Ellison. That's just, as the great philosopher Arsenio Hall would say, things that make you go, I just wonder if there's I don't know. But I do know when they made Kirk Lane, when the mayor announced, hey, we're going to make Kirk Lane the police chief all those years ago, a whole bunch of people showed up at that city director's meeting protesting that. And I know why, too. And I do know that dearly departed Linda Ives, the mother of Kevin Ives, one of the boys in the tracks, perhaps you've heard of them. I remember what she said when Governor Hutchinson appointed Kirk Lane to be statewide drug czar. She said, it's one thing for somebody to stab you in the back. It's another thing for somebody to slap you across the face in front of God and everybody. She said, I feel like Governor Hutchinson appointing Kirk Lane statewide drug czar is like spitting on my son's grave. I remember that. You can probably look up the rest if you want. Oh, yeah. Linda Ives and her longtime friend, nice lady, I met her and her husband, Gene Duffy. They started a website about the boys in the tracks back in the late 90s called idfiles.com. It lay dormant for years, and then a few years before Linda passed, they kind of resuscitated it and put a lot more stuff in there. Crazy thing about that whole boys in the tracks thing. Linda and Gene agreed with what most people thought about who was responsible for the murders of Kevin Ives and Don Henry. The only thing they disagreed on was exactly how and why it went down. They agreed with the names, but they had come to the conclusion that it happened for a different reason than just the boys who are out there innocently spotlighting deer. idfiles.com, it's fascinating. It really is. Okay, all right. Try to squeeze in some more breaking news. I was hoping that the U.S. Supreme Court would have said why they were not accepting the case of Piper Partridge and Dominic Schweichel about the shooting death of their son, 17-year-old Keegan Schweichel, back in 2016 at the hands of a Benton police officer. But not a word. That's very difficult news. All right, more coming up as the Doc Washer Show continues. 101.1 The Answer. 101.1 The Answer. Doc Washburn Show continues, where you can sound off and talk back at 501-401-1011. Apparently the deadline for the ceasefire being over is 7 p.m. Central Time tomorrow night. And Trump's guys, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, are available to keep going negotiations right down the last minute. But if the Iran guys don't even show up, no. That's going to make it a lot easier to just go ahead and, okay, well, I guess we can go ahead and take the power plants and the bridges out. So everybody's like, well, why don't the people of Iran rise up? Well, they have, but they don't have guns. That makes it more difficult. But if nobody has electricity, well, see, here's the other thing a lot of people aren't thinking about. Here's the other thing. If and when we go ahead and hit everything, what if instead of hitting the power plants and the bridges, because our intel on whatever's left of the guys in charge of Iran is so granular, is so AI, that we could just probably take all the rest of them out. Which, when you think about it, every once in a while, recently, Trump has said, oh, yeah, we're real close to an agreement. And it's been regime change. It's a whole different group of guys. Keeps on using the word regime change. Well, 2 words, the phrase. So what if, because a lot of us have been saying, look, you're not stupid. You know you can't trust a signed agreement, even if they sign what you want, of a regime that is continuing to execute teenagers. Who was it? Pardon me. We're not going to have time to get to the audio, but Senator John Kennedy out of Louisiana said if he was still alive, you wouldn't give a nuke to Charlie Manson. Well, that's what we're dealing with over there. That's how completely morally gone they are. So when they're like, you know what, flip the middle finger, you and the horse you rode in on, we're not even going to bother with the negotiations, or even if they do, and we just can't get to an agreement, and they're just so sure that we'll extend the ceasefire, and we don't. Perhaps instead of taking out the power plants and the bridges, we just target every one of these guys. So it gets to the point where there's really nobody left. And then that would be regime change. And then the people of Iran could pick up the guns dropped by the guys that were just pulverized. Just a thought. Just a thought. Don't be surprised if that happens. A lot of people don't know what our first strike was on Saturday, February 28th. Israel has some kind of a missile system that could shoot a missile straight up in the air, almost leave Earth's atmosphere, but not quite, and then come straight back down on the target. And so the missile defense system of the other country can't see it coming. And that's exactly what they did. And the Ayatollah and everybody else, the regime, were under the impression we would never hit them in broad daylight because Israel never had and we never had. Anytime we'd ever hit them, it had been in the dark of night. So they're having a breakfast meeting Saturday morning, February 28th. Pass me some more baklava. Give me some of that yogurt there. Okay, I'll have a pita with some hummus. And all of a sudden, out of a clear blue sky, no warning whatsoever, we took out the Ayatollah and almost 50 of the top regime guys. And when I tell that to people these days who weren't aware of that, they're like, man, that made a statement. So with AI and with our Department of War, don't be surprised if instead of taking out the power plants and the bridges, we just take out the rest of the regime guys. And there would be regime change by definition because there's nobody left. I'm just saying. As frustrated as I get about some other areas of the government, I think that this has been handled really well. But again, the New York Post is reporting that the Islamic Guard has taken full control of Iran, and they're hardcore. They're not going to negotiate or give up anything because they know if the families of any of the people they've taken out there in their own country have half a chance, they're going to kill them all anyway. So, again, that makes it easier for President Trump, and it makes it easier for Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Brazen Kane, to go ahead and say, well, we gave them every chance, but we got to do what we got to do, man. Don't be surprised. All righty. The great Dave Ellswick, scheduled to join you again, 7:06 tomorrow morning. And, of course, I'm looking forward to tomorrow afternoon, 4:06 tomorrow. The Doc Washer Show continues, God willing, 101.1, The Answer.